This is the making of Ghostly Tales. 2 years after the first song was written, finally we have it recorded and it's ready to be released. This is the story of how it was made and the story of the songs that have made Ghostly Tales what it is.
Why Ghostly Tales? Well, I have a massive intrigue in ghosts, and I have followed old ghostly tales from since I was a child. My dad used to tell me tales from many years ago when he lived in London, and then he moved out to Slough, and he used to tell me tales about the ostrich, and I was always intrigued. So I decided that I would investigate more into tales and old ghostly tales, and living in Berkshire in the Royal County where Herne the Hunter lives, it really intrigued me. And then one day, about 3 years ago, I was sitting in Windsor Great Park, having taken the children out for a picnic on school holidays, and I wrote my first song, which is in the Ghostly Tales, and that's called Herne the Hunter. And of course the story is about Herne and how he got killed, but more for me was the fact that actually whilst I was sitting in that park, I could feel the whole story come together, and in fact wrote that song and the whole words in about 5 minutes, and brought the song home, and Barry didn't really like it at first, and it just kind of stayed on the back burner.
Most of the songs were written by Max, but I wrote a number of songs, probably more than the other 2 albums, so I'm pretty proud of that and really enjoyed having a lot more say in the writing of the songs because there was a lot of research to be done. Turpin's Defiance came to me very quickly. Dick Turpin has a history of being in Berkshire, especially Bracknell. He used to be doing his trade, if you like, plying his trade on the old roads of Berkshire, and he used to hide out at the old manor, and he used to run from the law by using tunnels into a pub which was now in the Met Office roundabout where that is now called the Hind's Head. I did a lot of research into Dick Turpin, and I found out he wasn't actually a very nice man at all. If you like, over the centuries they made him out to be a kind of romantic character, but in truth he was actually just a down and out criminal who in the end went to his death up in York, and he paraded through the streets, and actually when he had the noose round his neck, he sort of played up to the crowd and jumped rather than let the trap door open up. So that's why I've called it Turpin's Defiance. It started off as a lament, but I kind of made it a little bit more defiant, so from Turpin's Lament it came Turpin's Defiance.
And then I found some really intriguing books of the local ghost stories, which I started to read, and discovered a story about the Kintbury Witch. And that was really intriguing because the Kintbury Witch, of course, lived in Kintbury, and the story goes that she kept making the bell fall out of the church tower at Kintbury and fall into the River Kennet. Very local story, and from there it became one of my first 2-part songs with the words leading naturally into this little ditty, which I kept playing on the acoustic guitar until it all kind of all fell in place. And then when we demoed it, all of these other parts came, apart from the recorder and the acoustic guitar and the lead guitar going all across with the ditty. In fact, if you listen carefully, there's in fact 2 recorder interwoven parts, and there could have been 3, but I think we had to make a stop there. And then of course the spell was apparently the actual spell that was cast to get rid of the Kintbury Witch, so that's the spell that we talk about. And then as I carried on writing, I came across a song which was about the Wargrave Sprite. I didn't come across the song, I came across the story rather, and the story goes that there was a lady who was encouraged to walk down into the River Thames and allow herself to be drowned by some kind of water nymph or spirit that was in the water. totally encapsulated her with its beauty. And I think we've tried to show that in the song. It's a very eerie song, but very beautiful. And the lovely cello part underneath has really kind of captured that deep, dark eeriness, and the guitar wailing in the background. I'm really, really pleased with that song.
Tin Can the Man, I wrote, it's all about, basically here in Warfield, just up the road from where we live, there was a lord called Lord Ormsthwaite. He lived at Warfield Park, and he mistreated his wife, Emily Walsh. Her maiden name was Emily Walsh, and the villagers of Warfield went out and protested, and they did what was called tin canning in Victorian times. On the 28th of October 1874, they marched from the Plough and Harrow, banging pots and pans, and showed their utter contempt of Lord Ormsthwaite and the way he was treating Lady Emily. And that's what we did. When we wrote the song, we wanted a lot of chanting, and as you'll see later on in this programme, the way we did it in the studio was really quite fun.
And then, of course, there's a very, very different song on the album, and that's called Sarce and Stone. And I don't know how to explain how that came about, really. I was looking about the more out towards Reading way, really, because there's a lovely old abbey out in Reading, and there's many different stories, ghost stories out there. But one which fascinated me was about the Sarce and Stone and the Blowing Stone, which King Alfred was supposed to have called and blown his horn to summons all of his troops from across all of the Berkshire Downs. It kind of fascinated me, and I just had this whole kind of feel of a horn being blown across the downs, and quite eerily everyone responding and coming out of the woodwork to respond to a war. So that was quite a very, very different feel, and I feel it's quite sort of almost country. It has a real sort of country chunk to it. And as I remember writing this song, I was thinking, I'm not sure this is Spriggan Mist at all, but actually I feel that, it's all falling into place with Barry singing it, and some great guitar parts on it by Martin now. I'm really pleased with that.
And the treaty sign, Alfred bought some time from the Danes.
Trapdoor is an unusual song. It's kind of got an inverted verse and chorus. I wrote the lyrics, and I wrote the Fat Pig bit, music-wise, and Maxine wrote the rest. So it was a bit of a collaboration. It's about the ostrich in Datchet, where the innkeepers there, the Jarmans, used to invite people into their inn. If they had a lot of money, Mrs. Jarman would say to Mr. Jarman, the fat pig's ready, he's ready in the sty. And once the rich person would go to sleep, the bed would hinge open, and they would drop into a vat of boiling hot water. So the lyrics, but the fact there was just one lyric I didn't like, and I'll have to give him the credit that Martin changed one line of the song, which I was very grateful for.
The story about Javal intrigued me because I quite like the idea of a rogue who would steal money from people, but actually chat the ladies up. Kind of quite a cool guy in a way, because it'd be quite nice to be chatted up whilst you're having your money stolen, I thought. But he was actually quite young when he died, the risks of being a bandit, I suppose, in those days. And unbeknown to me, when I started to look up the history, the Bath Road was in fact lined with many, many gibbets, 19 gibbets, all on their way to London, to remind all of the bandits of that time and all the highwaymen that actually this was what would happen to you if you continued to behave in this way. So as they drove into London, every day they would see new thieves hanging from the gibbets, and Javal ended up being one of those. But how cool to play your fife and dance and sing as well as steal money. Arborfield came about when I was starting to research the local area and discovered that there was a witch who lived on a farm, Mag's Green Farm, and she used to diddle people out of weights and measures. Basically, she used to kind of half measure milk and half measure butter so she could make a little bit of money. She didn't have many other skills other than the fact that she was a witch, and gave some of her time to doing some sort of naughty spells for people that needed them. However, when she died, the rumour had it that actually they were glad she was dead, because in fact she diddled everybody all the time, and so she came back to haunt the whole village, and she came back to tell them that actually she didn't fiddle them, and screamed it down the lane like every night consistently, terrorising the whole neighbourhood. So they called in priests and had her buried, her soul brought and her ghost laid to rest in the bottom of a pond. And how they did that was by laying a giant flagstone and asking the priest to call her spirit into the stone and submerging it in water whilst blessing the water. And we went to look for this pond, actually a very intriguing story, where we went hunting for the pond to find out that actually it had been filled in and is now underneath the crossroads in Arborfield. So never to be seen no more. But the stone's still under there, and they never removed it apparently. So very intriguing, and I wonder whether she actually ever does come back on certain days. Certainly has an eerie feel around the old Arborfield crossroads.
Ghostly Tales started many months ago. Brainchild of Baz and Max. They wrote the songs and we all learned them.
The fat pig is ready for the start. Up in his room, in the bed he lies. When the vat is...
I tried to kind of explain it to Baz, and he struggled with it at first as a concept, but as the song started to come together and as we researched and found so many stories around Berkshire, he realised actually there was a lot of material, and he started writing songs himself and got quite excited about it.
And then we all trundled on down to South Coast. Very good recording studio run by Josh from the Dolmen. He was very good at making it, putting it together. We just sort of played some notes, and he managed to put them all together in some sort of semblance of musicality that ended up resulting in Ghostly Tales.
Well, I got there earlier the day before to set the stuff up and get a sound. In my little cubicle. Then I went to stay in my little tent.
What was really nice about making this album as opposed to Soul Retriever is that we got everything done really quickly, and on the second day we had loads of time to put extra stuff on, which I thought was very good.
I don't know if I've got a favourite song. They're like children. You like them for different things. Kintbury Witch is a nice rocker. Turpin's Defiance, I like it because it's I feel quite proud of it because I've written it. Wargrave Sprite because it's something different, and it's a first for Spriggan Mist, not having any bass and drums. Tin Can the Man is brilliant because I know live it's going to get people singing, so I can't really put my finger on a favourite song.
I got three favourites really on it. Well, I say that actually, I had three favourites before we recorded it, and now I really like all of it because it's quite different. But I suppose it would be a toss-up between Kintbury Witch and Wargrave Sprite. Kintbury Witch has got a really nice movement to it. It really moves, it really rocks. I like the way the two parts of the song fit together. I think I like the vocal harmonies, I like the way all the recorded parts move together in the second half. And Wargrave Sprite I like because it's just really different. It's completely different to everything else on the album. It's really raw and exposed.
Wargrave Sprite is because it's something so different and so out of the band's comfort zone. Captured my spirit and you stole my mind. I followed you out in the cold as if I was...
Off the album, I think my favourite song would have to be Wargrave Sprite, simply because Baz and Colin are not in it.
The last 4 sessions we've been trying to achieve, well, the majority of the album through audio tracks, recording the different instruments and different parts which are going to make up the songs. And over the next few weeks we'll be looking at mixing and creating a final take of everything and creating an overall final recording.
How do you think it's gone?
I think it's gone brilliantly personally. I think within the time that we've had, we've done fantastically because we've got everything down. It's just a case now of mashing it all together and making it something you can listen to where everything's got its own place and its own part and hopefully all come together to a nice arrangement.
Was there anything that fazed you doing this recording? Any instrument you hadn't encountered before, or anything like that? Anything unknown?
I'd obviously I've recorded orchestras in the past and things like that, but the cello was something I've never, as a solo instrument, I've never really touched before, so that was quite fun. So it's sort of think of different ways of creating the sound from that we need to achieve.
What do you think of the new songs?
You said no speaking. You said no speaking. I can't. Is there some speaking or no speaking? Yeah.
What do you... Right, let's start again. What do you...